The original Xbox One came out in 2013 and the Xbox One S in 2016. While the Xbox had a slow start, the S model really did help fix things and boost Microsoft back into the limelight, along with, of course, their consumer-friendly model with backwards compatibility and Xbox Game Pass. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're taking a look at the Xbox One and Xbox One S and seeing how they hold up in 2021. So this video will be covering both the original Xbox One and the Xbox One S, not so much the Xbox One X. I think that warrants another review completely. In short, the Xbox One X is just a more powerful version of the Xbox One. There's also the Xbox One S Digital Edition, which is just the Xbox One S but without a DVD drive, meaning you'll need to buy and download all your games online. The original Xbox One and Xbox One S look quite different, but there's actually not a whole lot changed with the newer One S. Of course, it's much slimmer and sleeker. We're talking nearly 40% smaller, and it even has a built-in power supply, which means no annoyingly large power brick outside the console. It can output 4K and HDR video, although mind you, it doesn't actually play games at a native 4K, but for Netflix streaming or whatever, you can output 4K, which is nice. The original Xbox One actually had a glossy finish, but mine is a slightly newer model that has a nicer matte finish instead, just like the Xbox One S. They look a lot different, but beyond the cosmetics, there really aren't very many major differences. A lot of you watching this already likely have one of these consoles and are wondering whether or not you should upgrade. So let's start with that. It's not an easy choice to make, with the next generation of consoles being in its infancy, which means not a lot of games that truly makes the jump to the Xbox Series X worth it. Of course, if you have a 4K TV and you'd like to game in 4K, now is a good time to take the plunge and pick up the Series X. It costs $499 US, and I'd say that's a fair price for what's essentially a very good gaming PC right now. And then of course you have the cheaper Xbox Series S at $300, and with it you get no disc tray. It can play games in up to 1440p and will upscale to 4K, so this means content won't be as sharp and crisp as the Series X, and graphics in general will probably look a bit worse. It's basically the Xbox One S on steroids. But yeah, that original Xbox One, now's a good time to upgrade. The old console is big, clunky, and if you've been using it for years now, it's probably very dusty, loud, and just ready to retire. But if you have an Xbox One S, I don't think you need to upgrade. Why? Well, for one thing, the console in my eyes still holds up decently in terms of feature set, but more importantly, it can still play all the newest titles releasing on Xbox. Microsoft made the bold decision to start off the next generation of consoles with 0 exclusives for the Xbox Series S or X, meaning any new game coming for Xbox right now will be fully playable on your Xbox One, including Halo Infinite. This goes for the original Xbox One as well. It's extremely impressive, and while it won't last forever, it does allow you to squeeze some more life out of your older system if you'd prefer to do that. The One S will do you good, and the original Xbox One can as well if it's still running fine for you. But maybe you want to buy an Xbox One. Maybe you don't have a console right now, or have an old PS4 and want to try the Xbox side, or who knows. Whatever the reason, the Xbox One S does seem to be kind of difficult to find. I looked around quite a bit and found that retailers do still tend to overcharge for them if they carry them in the first place, to the point of them either being still like $300, which is the same price as the Series S, and sometimes even more money with a bundle. Of course, that will never be worth it when you could get a significantly more powerful console instead. So if you do want a console new, I think the only answer for you is to go for the Series S or X. S if you want to save some money. At $300, it's a killer deal. Of course, there's going to be deals and discounts and clearance sales for the Xbox One S. If you can find it for under $200, I'd say it's not a bad deal. But again, you've got that Series S for not that much more money, so kind of a tough sell. And if you want to buy used, looking around on eBay.com, I found the One S was going for around and even over $200, which isn't horrible, and it is decent value for what you're getting. The One S is still a great machine, but the Series S is only $100 more, and it's an obviously better choice. So don't be tempted to go for an older Xbox One. Okay, so that was a lot of words. Let's take a little bit of a breather here and recap. Is the Xbox One worth buying? Probably not. The Series S is only $300, and if you're gonna get a new console, you might as well get, you know, the new console. If you have an Xbox One or Xbox One S, should you upgrade? I don't know, that's up to you. There are still games coming out for your console, but the next generation's pretty awesome, so when you want to jump on board is really just dependent on your financial situation and whether or not you're ready to spend that money. But I won't be ending the video here. Hopefully I've answered your initial question, but let's back up here a little bit and talk about the Xbox One a little bit more in depth. This here is the original Xbox One, and I bought it specifically for a video on the Xbox 360e, which is an Xbox 360 that looks like an original Xbox One. But it works out for this video because I can compare it to the S model, and looking at these two, it's pretty clear which one is superior. The original Xbox One is big, clunky, and the One S is just so much nicer looking. I've already said this, but it's slimmer, sleeker, has that built-in power supply, it's just better. And as briefly mentioned before, the Xbox One I have here, the original, isn't actually the original, it's a minor revision. The 2013 Xbox One actually had a glossy top instead of the matte finish, which in my opinion looked cheap and would scratch and collect fingerprints just way too easily. Obviously, that's my opinion, but it was flawed, and so Microsoft made the smart move to go with a matte finish while still keeping the interesting diagonal vent design on the top. I don't mind that, it's kind of unique. There's many a special edition of the Xbox One out there. My One X is actually a cyberpunk model, which is cool, and my friend has a blue One S, which you'll probably see a good few times in this video. All in all, I guess what I'm saying is I like the design of the Xbox One. I think it's very premium and just about perfect for a console. And as for the internal hardware, it's older. I won't bore you with the names of the processor and GPU and whatnot because it doesn't matter, but this is essentially a mediocre gaming PC from 2013. So in 2021, as you'd expect, it doesn't hold up the greatest, and the fact that it can still play modern games as well as it does is extremely impressive, and it's thanks to optimizations by game makers, although keep in mind sometimes games just aren't well made for the older hardware. Cyberpunk 2077 is an easy example of an absolute disaster, as on the Xbox One and base PS4, at launch it just would not play right. Both the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X seem to be able to handle it well enough, but the older systems not so much, and while it's a bit of an outlier, most games aren't this poorly optimized. As time goes on, you're going to find more and more games just aren't running very well. That's one of the issues with Microsoft forcing support for as long as they plan to. The Xbox One might really have a hard time with a lot of the newer, more power-hungry titles releasing. That being said, as it stands right now, there are many games pushing the limits of the Xbox that look absolutely fantastic and run shockingly well. Red Dead Redemption 2 is easily one of the best looking video games of all time, and it plays at a steady 30 frames per second the vast majority of the time. You do have to deal with the downgraded graphics compared to a better system, but that's a worthwhile trade-off to be able to play the game in the first place. Forza Horizon 4 is another good example, as it runs perfectly on the Xbox One at 30 FPS. There's not a lot of titles, unfortunately, that you're going to be playing at 60 FPS without at least the One X. That's just how it is, but you can still get a very good experience. And the benefit of an older system like the Xbox One or the One S is that they have an absolutely massive library of games already built up, ready and primed for you to jump into. I'll name just a few of the greatest titles you can play right now: Metal Gear Solid 5, Forza Horizon 4, and Motorsport 7, The Witcher 3, Doom Eternal, the Master Chief Collection and Halo 5, Titanfall 2, Dishonored 2, Monster Hunter World, No Man's Sky, Quantum Break, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Star Wars Battlefront 2, Skyrim Special Edition, Dead by Daylight, The Outer Worlds, and so many more games. This might feel like a kind of strange list I gave, perhaps missing a lot of your favorites, but it was very cherry-picked. Every game I just named is actually included within the Xbox Game Pass library, meaning if you have a Game Pass subscription, you can download any game I just named and play it without actually having to buy it. And this here is what I consider to be the real appeal of Xbox right now in 2021, Game Pass. Xbox recently raised the price for Xbox Live Gold to $120 a year from $60, then immediately reversed it after a ton of complaints. Why do this in the first place? Well, mainly I think it's to push you to go for the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription for $15 a month, as it includes Xbox Live as well as access to the Game Pass library on both Xbox and PC. So $15 a month for over 100 game titles and Xbox Live Gold, which is a necessity if you want to play practically any online title, including Fortnite, even though you don't need PlayStation Plus on PS4 to play Fortnite. It's strange. But all in all, Game Pass Ultimate is a really great deal, and you would only save a little bit of money by only getting Xbox Live Gold. Basically, I do highly recommend Game Pass if you have an Xbox and haven't already, bought all of those games. And although Microsoft can be a bit hit and miss when it comes to being pro-consumer, I do think overall what they've done here is a massive net positive. And the games are constantly changing, so by the time this video is out, some of those games I mentioned may not even be up anymore, but other games will have taken their place, so it means that there's going to be some new stuff to play with decent frequency. The games for Xbox One are great, and there's a lot of them, and how you play the games is also great, with the Xbox One controller easily being one of the best controllers of all time. Heck, it's so good the Xbox Series X controller barely changed anything. The shape shape and feel of the controller is both premium and extremely comfortable in the hands, and it still feels very modern, although the micro USB instead of USB-C on newer controllers is a bit annoying to me personally, but still, really hard to complain about it. One potential flaw, although it depends on your opinion, is that the controllers require 2 AA batteries, just like they did back in the 360 days, and this is the same for the Series X controllers. You can buy rechargeable batteries for the controllers, which is what I did, so I'll actually link the Amazon page to rechargeable batteries in the description below in case you want one. I really do think it's worth it. It's nice to be able to just plug it in and not have to worry about always having AA's on hand. But coming to this point here, I'm not sure what else there really is to say about the Xbox One. Well, the console does manage to hold up and will continue to get more games for another couple years, which is extremely impressive. With the Xbox Series S and X out on the market, I just can't recommend buying one anymore. At least brand new. The used market is a whole nother beast, and if you can find what you consider to be a good deal, maybe bundled with some games or controllers, then heck, why not go for it? Just try to get a 1S, as the OG Xbox One is more likely to have issues, plus the 1S can output 4K video, which is really appreciated. So in short, should you upgrade? That's up to you, ultimately. If you have the original Xbox One, I would at least consider it, just because it can't do 4K whatsoever, but if you have an older TV or just don't mind, then it's basically the same as the 1S, and hence holds up. It can play any of the games coming out right now, and that's what's really important. And so with that, I think I'm right about done here. Any of you out there still using your Xbox One, how's it working for you? Make sure you let me know in the comments down below. Oh, and what's your favorite game of all time for the Xbox One? If you found this video interesting or helpful, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech if you'd like to for some reason. With that all being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91tech, and I will see you all next time.